In the 2000s, Mystified had several releases reviewed by the free underground review publication Vital Weekly. Here Thomas Park reads several of these reviews by the reviewer Franz de Waard and shares some thoughts on them. Mystified, Instability, CDR by Amplitude. Despite the fact that Mystified has a website, we don't learn much about the band, except that they released quite a bit of material, and that one of their releases has a remix by Robin Story, aka Rapoon. I think I wish I didn't know this. The simple reason is that I was already thinking that Mystified sounded a bit like Rapoon, but even more like the old Soviet France, the area when Story was still a member. But perhaps now everyone thinks I made this up after reading about the remix. Well, either way, I was and still am a big fan of the old Soviet France stuff, and especially their longer works. I think Mystified, with their somewhat shorter approach, leaps the big gap that has been there for many years now quite nicely. Rough, sketch-like, psychedelic, partly rhythmic, more techno than ethno, this is quite a nice release, stirring good memories and offering new ones. Franz de Waard. Commentary. Yes, for sure, Rapoon is a big influence, but there's much more to Mystified than that. This is a nice, positive review, but by comparing the two acts so closely, it belittles them both. Rapoon has more going on source-wise than shortwave sounds, and Mystified is more noise-centered, at least here, and uses strange techniques such as fractal mixing. B+. Mystified, Soothgrains, CDR by Dim Records. The Netherlands' smallest label, perhaps, is Dim Records, run by our Stefan de Turk, otherwise known as Stapelfahrer. His releases have a deliberate low-level look and come in editions that are usually not more than 2 handfuls. Mystified have been greeted before in these pages, and on their new release they extend their blend of sampling even further. They seem to be doing all, techno rhythms, ambient, and noise. Everything is thrown in that sampler of theirs, and things groove around. Well, of course not in a way that will make your feet move, but in a way that will make your feet tap or your head nod. Head nod music was a category some sort of distributor once used to lump this kind of music in, and indeed Mystified are head nodders. I can even imagine them making a nice 12-inch of alternative dance beats someday. The first signs of that have arrived. Franz de Waard. Commentary. This is a nice review, but I am confused. We have said that Mystified is like Rapoon, and now we are suggesting that they are essentially a dance band. The reviewer assumes the trajectory of an act by listening to one release, and in the case with Mystified, that can be a mistake. Still, not a bad review. Nice and constructive. A-. Mystified, Mellow Utility, CDR by Amplitude. More from Mystified, who are a mysterious lot, or just one, who knows, who are getting more and more busy with new releases. Here is another one on Norway's Amplitude label. It's always a bit hard to say when stuff was recorded and how new releases should be placed on a timeline of development. But this new Mystified moves, unfortunately, away from the previous proto-techno rhythms, and stays along the ambient industrial lines of the releases that I heard which came earlier. Minimal soundscapes built around samples and synthesizers, with throughout not much development, but which are throughout very pleasant to hear. Nothing exciting new, but certainly, well, entertaining. This more noisy version of Soviet France, but it would be nice to see them explore the techno side a bit more. Commentary. Now we are back to the Soviet France Rapoon comparison, but I'm thinking that the reviewer just did not know what to say. He seems to be losing interest in the project. Maybe he was going on little sleep. A bit vague then. C+. Mystified Lower, CDR by Krakalisk. From Mystified we have reviewed several releases, and most likely there is much more we don't know about. It's a one-man project of one Thomas Park. The title seems to me the program of the CD, lower as in the lower regions of the tonal spectrum. The CDR opens up with a bunch of quite similar pieces of dark ambient, the lower spectrum made audible with field recordings and/or synthesizers, albeit of a digital nature, but there is more to it than that. There is also a piece which evolves around a bass drum, which is quite nice. I remember thinking that Mystified should explore the rhythm road more, and some that are slightly more experimental. Maybe it's a bit too conceptual, this one, and one could wish for some more high-end tones, and that those should not be on the next release called Higher. Commentary. The reviewer is accurate regarding the sound of the content, but begins to make mistakes when he writes about how the sounds were created. Mystified rarely, if ever, uses synthesizers, and it's hard to tell if his Higher remark is serious or tongue-in-cheek. B-. Mystified, Deprogram, 3-inch CDR by Industrial Culture Records. The new Industrial Culture Records label releases all sorts of experimental and industrial music, and the noise part went to Juliet, and the softer ambient drone side landed on my desk. The omnipresent Mystified, also known as Thomas Park, selected 2007 discography, counts 20 titles, and that doesn't include the lower release reviewed a week ago. Eat your heart out, Merzbow. The 4 pieces on the D program are all to be found on the lower drone ambient side of the musical spectrum. Machines humming, field recordings, or pitch-down samples. Whatever the input may be, Mystified delivers some fine work in a known modus operandi. The rhythmic aspects of his work, which was detected some time ago, is entirely gone here, which is a pity, since that proved, I think, a possible way out of the somewhat dead alley of ambient drones. Franz de Waard. Commentary. Here the reviewer is really throwing his weight around. The dead alley of ambient drones? Perhaps this goes too far. Rather, ambient drones are a generative genre with lots of potential. Again, he seems to be operating on little sleep, lacking coffee. At least he is generally positive. B-. Mystified, Uncanny, cassette by Heavy Nature Tapes. It's always good to see that there are still people releasing cassettes. Ages ago, my preferred format, and perhaps still something I like. Heavy Nature Tapes' first releases are all American bands. Mystified is a name that popped up before in these pages, with their curious mix of low-resolution samples and electronics. Sometimes they play a more rhythmic card, although not enough, in my opinion, and sometimes moody, textured music. Here the latter plays the main role. The tracks are all right, nothing new here for Mystified, although a bit more variation would have been nice. Franz de Waard. Commentary. Ho-hum. The reviewer knows Mystified. He is too tired to be specific. He can only suggest again and again that more is necessary. More beats, more variation. He does not understand the point of intentional minimalist approaches. He probably hardly listened to more than one song. C. Mystified Subdialogue, CDR by Vereto Project. While doing so many small things around here, I played Subdialogue by Mystified twice in a row. Perhaps I was not entirely convinced what I heard, or some such reason. Or perhaps I wanted to double-check things. Mystified belonged to the sort of musicians who play music as a hobby. Switch on the machines, create some music through sound manipulation, and see who is going to release it. No plan, no grandiose schematic to change the world of music. Just do whatever needs to be done. Nothing wrong with that. But on this end, the reviewer's end, things aren't that easy. First of all, there are so many things by one and the same artist that it's hard to see what is going on. And secondly, for some of the people goes, heard one, heard all. Actually, I do like Mystified's low-resolution, sampling ambient industrial wallpaper. Not a lot, but it's nice and it reminds me of, say, City of Worms, or some early Hands 2, and Subdialogue is no different. No development, and interchangeable. It's something you hear and go, oh, nice, but you wouldn't necessarily play it again, unless, of course, you are a reviewer. Commentary. The reviewer says the album is nice, but disposable. He expects the music to be exciting, to grab his attention. It is good that he appreciates the music, but sad that he does not seem to understand the point of ambience, which is, in part, to create atmospheres and sustain them, rather than to spark the emotion. C. Mystified Crank, CDR by Power Silence. Mystified is no longer a mystery. It's the one-man project of Thomas Park from St. Louis, who has presented much of his work already on CDR labels throughout on this planet. His music so far has been a blend of industrial music, ambient, and rhythm. Before I express the wish he should explore the latter aspect more, but so far he doesn't so, and Crank is no exception. In some ways, this seems to be a return to the more industrial outings by him as before. Still armed with a small sampler and sound effects, he creates here 9 pieces of minimalist industrialist patterns, bouncing up and down within the small frames that Park allows himself. Like I said, I wish he would leave this path and explore the motoric rhythm he explored briefly before, and here only in a remix of Metek. But this is once again solid ambient industrial music, maybe a bit too much of the same, and that's something I don't like very much. Commentary. The reviewer suggests that Mystified has a small frame that he allows himself, and that there is too much of the same. He does not see that Mystified was deliberately cultivating a style. He was in a mode, creating minimal ambient industrial drones, working hard to perfect his craft. You would not ask a minimalist to create a folk symphony. D+. Thanks, Vital Weekly, for all the reviews. I wish you would appreciate the minimalist approaches more, and that there was more time to listen to albums all the way through. But I do appreciate that you offered a free service to the independent underground. Over and out.